You're listening to Reignite, a podcast about ignoring the main story in favor of an endless list of side quests. I'm Frankie.
And I'm Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And joining us for our return to Voeld is Kaz Wheeler. Thank you so much for joining us, Kaz.
Thank you for having me.
Kaz, thank you for being here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do? Why are you so cool?
I'll take that. For the most part, what I do is I kind of run errands for my family. Mostly, I take care of my grandmother and my great-grandmother, basically doing whatever they need doing because they're up in age, so they can't do as much as they usually do or used to do. So I kind of take care of them as much as I can. That's most of my day.
A person after Jal's heart.
Yeah, apparently.
Jal Amatarov would be very proud of you.
Well, I'll take that any day.
Tell us a little bit about your Mass Effect journey. What's your relationship to Andromeda been like?
Sure. I was actually thinking about this, and the first time I remember seeing Mass Effect and grabbing it and playing it was getting it off the shelf at a Blockbuster. That's how far back I go. And I remember seeing it on the shelf and thinking, well, that's a cool looking sci-fi space game, and that's a thing I'm super into. I didn't know anything about the game at that point, so I just picked it up, gave it a shot because nothing else looked that interesting. Because this would have been 2008-ish, so dying days of Blockbuster. So I picked it up. And the interesting thing is, I remember doing it twice because I picked it up, I played it, and I don't remember a whole lot about it. And then a few months later, I saw it again and thought, why didn't I enjoy this? Why don't I remember anything about it? I picked it up again because I couldn't remember why I didn't get into it. And then I got it again and just kind of fell in love with it. For whatever reason, that first time it didn't click with me. The second time, loved it. And then it was just on from there and played through waited for the whole series, played through it. But the interesting thing that I realized with the Legendary Edition when it came out last year is I realized that I had spent 12 years playing these games and doing something completely wrong. The only time that I'd done something in this game was one time during Mass Effect 2, whenever you run into Jacob the first time, and you used biotic power. That's the only time I used it for 12 years playing these games. Never used biotics once.
Oh, no.
I used it as an action shooter RPG for over a decade, never using it at all. And so I decided, with Legendary Edition, I'm going to try these and see what's up. Why do people like these so much? Because I just never messed with them. I didn't play games that had stuff like that, and so I just used it as a shooter game forever. And it was like playing a completely different. It was. Yeah. It made things so much easier. And I was like, I've spent over a decade making this game way harder than it has to be.
Kaz, are you secretly my dad?
There's no reason for it. I just thought, why am I? That just seems superfluous, and why am I doing it? And
That's
then
how my
I decided.
Dad played.
I don't know if I like that. But yeah, and then I did it, and I was like, this is the best. I've deprived myself of this forever. What have I done?
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then when Andromeda came out, I was as hyped as could be because it was a new Mass Effect game. And the trilogy had been, one of the best things ever. And the first time I played Andromeda, I hated the opening mission. Hated it. I think it's, and on subsequent replays, I don't mind it at all. It's perfectly fine. I think it was just because it was so different from what the trilogy had done that I just wasn't used to it. And so that change was just so sudden, especially because I had gone up to Andromeda. I replayed the trilogy before it. So it was going straight from one to the other. And it drove me crazy. But then basically after the first mission, I liked it. But it was that jump that drove me crazy the first time. But now that I know how to play it, it's perfectly fine. And I like it just as much as any other games. I don't have a whole lot of problems with it that a lot of people seem to, at least when it came out.
You raise a good point that there is somewhat of a learning curve to Andromeda. I feel like a lot of people expected to roll out of Mass Effect 3 into Andromeda and not to have to learn any new mechanics. And I think that might have been a lot of what people came up against.
Yeah, I think if you didn't play the trilogy right before, I think you like it better because you aren't used to doing one thing.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair.
Yeah, I think that the reason, like, because I mean, you listened to the episode. I felt that, right? Like, I definitely, that first time I ran around in this wide, far back third person position, I'm like, this is weird. Mass Effect characters don't move like this. But I think I got the hang of it quickly because Dragon Age Inquisition characters do move like this, and I played that first. And I think that's where, and like, I will admit, and there's a bunch of it in this episode, the platforming's still not great. It's not bad, but it's definitely not precise in the way that most 3D platformers are, which, right, like this like Dragon Age, the platforming is kind of an afterthought. I think the platforming is more focused in this game than Dragon Age. Dragon Age, you're just trying to climb up a mountain when you're not supposed to by jumping on ledges, right? In this, like all of the vaults so far have some kind of platforming element, and it's fine. So like I can get where also that bouncing off could happen, because for me that definitely happened in the movement. The combat, like once that camera snaps in, you're like, oh, this is mostly familiar. I know what this is, but like some of the other viewpoints and stuff and like interaction with stuff is definitely very different from the trilogy.
All right. Are we ready to get into things?
Yes, let's hit that summary.
Excellent. We're back on Voeld to actually explore instead of doing a hit and run mission. Ryder and crew have turned the tide of Angaran public opinion, but there is more to be done. From freeing Angara from labor camps to fending off the Kett at every turn. Voeld is a big place with a lot to see.
Yeah, we have no check-ins, first of all, so
None.
sorry, folks. I know y'all love the check-in.
Sorry, Nikki.
Talk. Yeah, sorry, Nikki. But there will be more soon as we get back to the main story shortly. But I tweeted, I try not to tweet too much about Andromeda in my experience because it's wasting content as it is. God, I hated even saying that sentence. But I do try and keep up the air of mystery of, like, you know, people tune into the show to hear, especially for this season, right? It's how is Matt going to react to Andromeda loving Mass Effect as much as he has. But I did have to tweet about how when I first pulled up the map on Voeld and looked at all of the markers on the map, and I shared my favorite Arrested Development gif of, I have made a huge mistake. Even though Frankie had told me beforehand, like, take your time, there's going to be a lot. And I did. I gave myself a couple of days. But, like, I looked at that map and went, oh, no.
I told you.
There's so many missions.
There was a total of 33 missions available on Voeld.
Yeah, and I think you get viable somewhere around, like, 20. Like, you don't need most of the missions to make the planet viable.
That's kind of my favorite thing, is that, yes, there's a lot to do, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
Like, you could hit viability well before you complete all these missions, and you can come back to them later. You really don't have to sit there and do all of them in one sitting. You could have very well just said, Frankie, I'm bored. I cannot do this anymore. I would have been like, that's fair.
Yeah, but by the time I started to feel the strain of how many missions there were, I had like 3 left. And I think I still missed one looking at your list that you made for me. And so, like, I was like, this is fine. I mean, a big part of it, I think, is that I butt up against, and I've talked about this on the show before, like, ignoring side quests is my new kink. Like, this idea that I want to push through the main story of games, much going against my roots. In most games, like, I'm a diehard Chrono Trigger fan. We know how much I love Mass Effect. Like, I would do everything to the point where I recently got my hands on a Steam Deck, which is a wonderful little tool. Not perfect, but wonderful. And I got the Mass Effect Legendary Edition working on it. And I was talking to a friend of the show, Jesse Vitale, and I was like, yeah, I booted up Mass Effect. I'll probably only play just past, becoming a Spectre, and then I'll stop. And he's like, bullshit. And then I was like, and I'll probably ignore a bunch of side quests. He's like, bullshit. You're going to play that entire game from start to finish, from now till however long it takes you. You're not going to put it down. And he's been right so far. But, like, I do appreciate I do appreciate, though, that here on Voeld, even though it's a massive map, you can prioritize certain missions. There are definitely some major narrative missions versus, hey, go get the thing, which is pretty common in games like this. But it never felt like a drag, other than there was one mission, and we'll get to it, where I got teleported out of it while I was still doing another part of that mission.
Oh, no.
And I had to go all the way back to the Kett base for it. It's just so frustrating. No. It's like, why would you do this to me? Why would you betray me like this?
Oh, no. So, Fear not. I know I said there are 33 missions. We're not talking about all of them. That's just impossible. It's not happening. However, if there's a mission that we don't talk about that you have feelings about, dear listener, write us. Send us an email, tweet at us, and just be like, hey, you didn't talk about this. And we'll bring it up next episode. We'll give you a rundown. But we're going to talk about the missions that we feel we have a lot to say about.
Stuff that had choices, stuff that had like major revelations, narrative stuff about the Angaran or the Ket, or even, our heroes. Those kinds of missions. The fetch quests are fun enough, but I don't think you need to hear us talk about, I went to this thing and I killed that cat and I got that thing. Like not riveting podcasting, I don't think.
I mean, it depends on who you are.
I guess so.
Anyway, let's dive into it. So, first mission we're going to talk about is the Lost Scout. We find out that one of the Resistance members strongly believes that a scout is still alive, even though the Resistance leaders declared her dead. And, she's desperate for someone to go check it out. And Ryder comes along like, I'll help you. Or you could say, let it go. Get over it. But what kind of adventurer would we be if we did that?
If you do that, do you still get the mission, or?
Maybe. I know I never do that, though.
That's true.
Because I'm like, I'll help you. I'm so helpful.
I kind of want to do one playthrough where I just tell everybody I'm not.
No.
No.
Go away. I'm busy.
That's a good idea. You can call it the I can't be bothered playthrough, Kaz. And just treat everybody like, hey, it's too much work. I'm lazy.
I don't want to do the work today. So, long story short, if you accept this mission, you find the crash site, or the site of the explosion, rather. You investigate, and you do find her. Yeah,
before we get to the part where we find her, I'm going to talk about, it's Matt's Pet Peeve Corner. We don't have a fun theme song or actual title for it.
It's Matt's Pet Peeve. Pet Peeve.
Stop.
One day he'll co-sign one of my jingles.
And I'm curious about Kaz's thoughts on this too. Like, so typically in most games where you're exploring, there are indicators on how you explore, right? Like most famously in the two Horizon games, Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West, ledges you can climb are like yellow or have some kind of marking. Same for the old school Assassin's Creed games. Like things you can interact with look a little different. Just in the same way that a lot of games that have breakable environments, also it's a clear marker like, hey, this thing is cracked, or it flashes when you look over it because you have a HUD. Like, this is breakable. One of the things that drives me crazy about Andromeda is every time there is a breakable wall, it is indistinguishable from other environments. This happened to me when we were saving the Moshai and I didn't know to break the vents. And it happened here. You're following the power lines and there's one of the panels.
It's like an orange glass wall.
Yeah. And one of the panels is behind that orange glass wall. And I keep looking at it and going, I can't get in there. I shot it once and nothing happened. I punched it once and nothing happened. I was like, I don't understand what to do. So I looked up a walkthrough because I'm not against using walkthroughs. And it said you have to break the wall. And I went, really? And so then I started to shoot it more. And I emptied a whole clip and it started to crack. And I was like, how the hell was I going to know that? Like, it just, that kind of shit frustrates me because it's not like we do this all the time. We've now done this in 2 missions out of God knows how many. But it also makes me think, how many missions did I miss stuff because I didn't try and break a wall or break a whatever? It's just, it's driving me crazy that there's no indicator that, hey, this is a breakable thing, because it did look like just like any other wall in the entire building.
Yeah, you're right, because those are the games that, and what was I just playing the other day? The Spyro trilogy. And they actually have a similar problem. Is there's one part where you have to break a wall and it almost looks exactly like everything else. And yeah, that is frustrating. I guess you don't have to do it at that many times in this game, so it doesn't bother me a whole lot. But it is, especially when you're trying to do all this stuff for the show like this. I mean, I can see where that would just drive you crazy, because you want to get through this mission and find out what's happening. And there's this thing just blocking you the entire time. You don't know why.
I think your criticism is totally valid. I've played it so many times. I know what to look for when I'm doing this. Like, I know that vents that look like that can be broken. I know that anything that's kind of like this orange glass can be broken. It would be helpful if maybe one of your companions said, maybe if you break it, or like gave some kind of indicator that you should be doing something.
Well, yeah, because also on the other side of it, my other pet peeve about this planet is that every 10 seconds, Sam is telling me the temperature is fluctuated. Like, constantly. Like,
Sam could have some insights. You're right.
Right. Like, if Sam can tell me every time the temperature drops that the temperature's dropping and my life support's
he
going
can't tell
down.
you when you're being stupid. Yes.
Yeah. Like, that just... Ryder, I think that wall can be broken. Thanks, Sam. Like, yeah, it's just... That's what I think made me more angry. Because by the time we get to one of the later missions, I'm running in and out of cover and the whatever it is, life support areas so many times. He just keeps saying it. It's like, why? I know how this works. I've done it 1,000 times now.
Oh, Sam.
Anywho, but you, as
he's doing his best, man.
He is.
Is he though?
Well,
he is. He's doing literally his best.
He can't do less than that.
Yes. So we do find her. She's been locked in a room with a Ket soldier, and she's been torturing him this whole time because she believes that this soldier knows where her family is.
Yeah. And like when you get there, the Ket is begging for death. Like, and it's not giving up information no matter how much this Angaran tortures this Ket, and it just made my stomach turn.
I believe they say that they don't know. And it's not so much that they're refusing to give up the information, it's that they literally don't know it.
Right, yeah. And so it's not even like that she hasn't broken him yet. It's that he doesn't know. He doesn't have the information to give. And you insist that that you put him out of his misery. And she's like, no, I'm so close. I'll never see my family again if I don't keep prying for this information. And you're given a choice to either leave her here with him or to kill this Ket and put him out of his misery and like talk some sense into her. Which did you choose, Frankie?
I chose to kill the Ket.
What about you, Kaz?
I let her keep going.
Interesting.
Did you?
Yeah, this is probably the one I had the biggest decision on as far as all the missions. Like my thought process on it was, I don't trust the Ket. I don't know, especially because I played Voeld before the other worlds you guys have done. So this is earlier in my playthrough. So the way I'm thinking about it when I'm doing this one is we don't know enough about the Ket yet. And the Angarans have been fighting this for way longer than we have. So I'm trusting that she knows how to deal with the Ket better than we do right now. So my thought process is this sucks. I hate seeing it, but if she thinks there's still information, I think we have to put trust in them because we're trying to have an alliance with them at this point. So, it's a war and awful things are going to happen, but she might have dealt with this stuff before. I have to let her make the decision.
That raises a very good question. Matt, what did you do?
So I also killed the Ket.
Okay, that's what I expected of you.
Oh, I'm the terrible person.
No, you're not a terrible person. I think your reasons are incredibly valid, and here is the question that it raises for me. The question is, do we think, Matt and I, that our decision might have been different if we had come to this moment without knowing what we already know about the Ket and the Angara?
Right. Because for me, it's like, I know that the Angara are being turned into Ket. I know that it's what appears to be a horribly painful process, and they're being brainwashed. And it's like, it's bad enough that they're going through that. To then torture them on top of it. I mean, Angarans are essentially torturing themselves on some level, right? And so but also part of it is, since we're playing this game as ourselves, not only do we have all of that additional information, but I'm an empath and an empathetic person. And so me, at my core, in any video game, I would probably make that choice. And so there's a little, it's hard to be completely free of metagaming here. I like to think that we're playing as if we were the characters and we're ignoring the meta of it. But I don't think I've ever willingly tortured a character in any game I've played, because as we've discussed, I have trouble doing the renegade style decisions. And so I think it's a mix of all of that. But yeah, I think Kaz brings up something really interesting, that if you are distrusting already and you don't have a ton of information, you would want to get more information just like she does.
I think if I had entered that without the information that I currently have, it would have been difficult for me to make a decision either way. Because personally, I frown on torture. I think that's bad. But also, Kaz is right. This isn't our experience, and it can be wrong to force your moral standing on another person when you don't know where they're coming from. You don't know what they've been dealing with. They've been struggling with this much longer than you have. Those are all completely valid reasons. I think at this point in time, we do know the Angara well enough to know that no one else would want to do this. Like, this is a very extreme response, and our moral judgment is widely accepted by the Angara people. But that's because we know them at this point.
Yeah.
That's why I would feel safe to say that. But Kaz is right. If you enter it before you know what we know now, it's harder to make that judgment call.
Yeah, for sure. I agree 100%.
All right, let's move on to Reformation. So Reformation is an interesting one that focuses on Angaran religious beliefs. First, I do want to point out that I love the Angaran priestess that we meet. I think she's brilliant. She reminds me a lot of Bakara as a shaman for the Krogan women.
Mm-hmm.
And she has some really good quotes. She has some good lines. But she expresses concern over this new faction of Angaran youths called the Glory Seekers, who are trying to enforce enlightenment through reincarnation. As we already know, Angaran belief is that there is an unbroken thread and that there is reincarnation within families. So what the Glory Seekers are trying to do is they're trying to bring their knowledge from this life into their next life, to be better warriors and to fight the Ket on more even ground.
Yeah.
That is their goal. However, the Angaran priestess explains that trying to force reincarnation and trying to force enlightenment, that's not how it works. And they're just throwing themselves at Ket and dying for no good reason when they could be living out full lives.
Yeah. As we talked about before, also, the last time we were broached by the unbroken thread, it could be science, it could be
religion,
it could be spiritual, it could be anything. Like, we don't really know, and we don't get a definitive, this is really what's happening here answer on purpose, of course, right? Like any good mysticism, there is questions, and that's part of why you have to take the leap to believe. But as we, after talking to the priestess, that we're given the mission to go seek out these glory seekers and try and dissuade them from throwing their lives away. Because essentially how the glory seekers work is, as Frankie was alluding to, is they will seek out combat and death to then bring that power and that knowledge to their next life. And the initiation is essentially going off on a mission to kill Ket. Practiced or not in combat. And, this is an interesting quest because you're being asked to interfere in someone's belief, which is always a dangerous road to walk.
And it's hard. We don't really know what's correct, and it's not our beliefs and it's not our culture, but I do think that there is value in presenting an alternate path when the current path results in death so young. I think there's value in just saying, hey, I know it's not my business, but have you considered living a full life? Have you considered growing old and reaching enlightenment by living your best possible life? I feel like there's multiple ways to do this. And we do find some glory seekers in Techix. And they tell us that one of their number is out on his initiation. And, we're asked not to interfere really, but as long as Ket die, who cares? Such a relieving standpoint that they have. Oh
yeah.
There goes all my concern.
Yeah, I know, right?
So, when we find Tej, what does everybody do about this situation?
Well, first, I think it's important to say that poor Tej is terrified.
He's terrified.
When we find him, he's shaking. He doesn't want to do it. He has doubts. And so there are several things you can do at this moment at first. There are multiple choices throughout this track. The first one is to either tell him to just go in, just go for it, just go do the thing. Or you can offer to help and help shepherd him through killing the cat.
Or you can tell him to just go home.
Yeah. And I chose to tell him that I would assist him. Let's clear these cat out. Let's take them out.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I was like, he made the decision to do it. If he wants to do it, let me help him and try and do my best to protect him if I can. Yeah, if he wanted to make the choice, then I could at least
try and insist that at least he survives.
He does survive. And something he says that I feel is very important is living and learning is a good way of getting stronger too. And I think that's the widely accepted Angaran path to enlightenment. What did you guys tell Tej to do next?
Yeah, because right here you're given the option of just telling him to go back to his mates, to let them know that he succeeded, or direct him back towards the priestess who gave us the mission in the first place to possibly seek another path. And so, of course, I chose the logical one of not trying to get yourself killed and sent him back towards the priestess.
How about you, Kaz?
Yeah, same. It seemed like he had a little bit of a change of heart, so let's give him the option to make a different choice.
Sounds like we're all of one mind on this mission, because I also sent him back to the priestess. I just feel like if he goes back to his friends, then he's putting himself in danger of being bullied into doing this again.
And also he says something really brilliant. Like when you give him this option, he's like, I think Ryder says it or he says it. I think Ryder says it, that sometimes you grow apart. Like just because you're going a different path, like that's not necessarily a bad thing. People just grow apart or have different beliefs, and that's okay. It's okay to have different beliefs.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's move on to Uncovering the Past, one of the most polarizing missions that I think we have.
Yeah. Before we get into this mission, I will just say this gave me shades of my favorite question from the previous trilogy, and we'll get to it. We find an ancient city and we get to go explore it, which is pretty neat. We did a lot of that in the previous trilogy. We've done a lot of that already. These vaults are definitely not new places. And so this one, I think, had the most meat on the bones for the story stuff. We learned a lot of cool stuff. But yeah, we find out that there's that the Ket are trying to get to this underground place. They've been digging and mining and blasting out ice because there's something below the ground, but they're not sure what, and they're desperate to get to it.
Yes. There are Angarans trapped here. We have the option to free them. And we find out that this city has been entombed in ice for 500 years, well before the Scourge... because of the Scourge event, not well before.
Right.
And it's basically like an entirely different place from anything the Angarans know. When we blast through the wall of ice that the Ket were trying to get through, we discover that there is this ancient piece of technology waiting for us. It greets us so pleasantly and tells us that it's a VI that controls the city power grid.
Which Sam immediately tells us she's lying.
I love Sam's inflection. She is lying.
Yeah, like he's so annoyed because he knows exactly what she is. And as you continue the conversation with her, she says that she's just in pain and she's suffering and just needs to die. She just, she's in so much pain. Her power's running out. She lies
multiple times. She says that she's like low on power, that she's going to die soon. And Sam's like, no, you're not.
She's wrapped into the main power of the entire planet. She's fine. She'll be around forever. And then as you continue to talk to her, she's like, all right, fine. I want this to be done. I want to be done. I want out. I don't want to be researched. I don't want to become someone's project. I want to
leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah.
Please leave. Get out of my house.
And then before you can do anything, one of the captured Angaran who you freed, who shows you into this room, was like, well, fuck this. I want this. And so I'm going to... And you never reach your hand into an aggressive AI body ever. Have we learned nothing? Were there no
Don't touch
sci-fi
someone
movies?
without consent.
That's also that, yes. And so when he does that, she starts to electrocute him, not killing him, but only stunning him, but threatens to kill him if we don't kill her. And so now we are presented with a choice to either rescue the Songaran and lose this piece of history, or let the Songaran die so we can bring this AI with us to the Angaran people, since it appears to have been built by them in their past and then lost to time.
What did you do?
So, of course, the choice I'm alluding to is our favorite Geth choice, right? This idea of killing the heretics or rewriting them, that there's no moral correct answer. And here it's the same thing, right? Like, we're choosing to kill someone to save someone else. The good of the few and the many, but not quite. It's the good of the few or the few in this case. Or
a life for a life.
A life for a life, eye for an eye kind of a thing. Or, letting him die for the greater knowledge, right? Which also decisions like that have had to be made. And I sat with this for a while, which is unfortunate for the Angaran who is in a video game being zapped the whole time. It becomes comical after a while.
Oh
no. I can't go on like this. I have a family.
Actually, that man is dead now.
Yeah. But based on the morals that I've established as writer and just as myself in the Mass Effect franchise, I cannot justify sacrificing a life for another life. The fact that this AI made an aggressive move in order to convince me to kill it, I'm giving it what it wants, but I'm not sacrificing this innocent Angaran just for technology, just for knowledge. So I destroyed the AI.
Interesting. Kaz, what did you do?
Yeah, I am of a similar opinion of you. I mean, because the other two AIs we've really met in the series are Edie and Sam. And they've both been, for the most part, benevolent. But this one feels like a smarter version of like the EDVI on Luna from the first game. It's aggressive, and it especially because Sam tells you it's lying from the beginning. It doesn't feel like it can be trusted no matter what. So I'm not going to take that to basically anybody we've met in the game so far, because how many people can you trust with this thing at this point? Like, we haven't met anybody not on our crew that's really, well, besides a couple people on the Nexus. But who are you going to trust with that AI if you take it anywhere? And it obviously is aggressive enough that it is going to cause harm to somebody at some point. So it seemed like a pretty easy decision for me to go ahead and destroy it, because I don't know who you would give that power to. And I don't think there's anybody that can be trusted with it at this point.
Yeah, I think also part of it for me is that she, talking about consent, right? She didn't want us to take her out of there. She didn't want us to touch her at all. She wanted it to be done. And like, yes, execution and, talking about robotic AI life as life and soul and all of that. Like, it's a constant conversation throughout the Mass Effect franchise. But in that moment, I chose to save the innocent that I knew instead of the devil I don't, which is a tough choice to make, but is still like part of the logic of why I made that choice.
So I came at this from a completely different standpoint. So the AI is currently talking to us, telling us how she doesn't want to come with us. She doesn't know the Angarans. She doesn't care that she could unlock their past, etc. Before we can really progress the conversation and try and convince her, an Angaran rushes by us and starts working on trying to remove her himself. And she electrocutes him in response.
Yep.
And then she tells us, if you want him to survive, you have to kill me. Otherwise, he's dead. From my perspective, that's just a woman laying out her boundaries. Yes, okay, this is self-defense. Go ahead. He shouldn't have touched you. He shouldn't have threatened you. So, Ryder says you're, quote, you're too valuable to lose. That's not the reason I did it. The reason is because he violated her boundaries, and she reacted in self-defense.
I mean, that makes total sense.
So I didn't destroy her in that moment. But then the next decision comes. That decision is, do I take her back to the Nexus so she can be with Sam? Or do I return her to the Angaran people?
Which did you choose?
John and I fight about this.
Okay.
John believes that she deserves her bodily autonomy, and because she requests to be placed with Sam, that's what she should get. That's John's position. I believe that yes, she does have bodily autonomy, but also toddlers don't always get what they want, do they?
Yeah.
She lied to us multiple times. There's already anti-AI sentiment on the Nexus. She's a foreign entity. We can't necessarily trust her. I'm not going to bring this aggressive AI back to the Nexus where she could do who knows what and be babysat by my AI, Sam, who has much more important things to do. And Jal is nearby saying, why is everything about borders? Like, if Sam could help her, that's what you should do. Which, I respect your opinion. However, if I do that, Ephra is never going to speak to me again. And I kind of need that alliance. Kind of need it to make sure that our people don't die. So I chose to return her to the Angaran people. She's not happy about it, but she doesn't belong to us.
Right.
She doesn't belong to anyone technically, but I feel like the Angara will have a better chance of breaking through to her.
I mean, this feels like a decision that has no right answers.
It doesn't. It doesn't have a right answer unless you talk to John and he tells you what the right answer is, and then we fight about it. Right. So that is what I did, and I'm very surprised that I'm the only one who did that.
I do want to point out that we hadn't mentioned who we brought with us yet.
That's
obviously,
true.
Obviously, we both brought Jal, because I, of course, brought Jal. But I brought Cora this time as well, which is a combination I had not brought before.
I brought PB because the two of them are fucking hilarious in the car together. I have to tell you my favorite interaction between them.
Please do.
So, PB and Jal talk about how the Ket are similar to the Asari. They talk about just Angara stuff overall. But my favorite thing that happens between them is that Jal is trying so hard to connect with PB, and PB is just like, too bad you can't ever read any books that I liked because I didn't bring them with me. Too bad you cannot connect with me. It's not gonna happen. And Jal decides to, like, mess with her, and he falls asleep in the car and snores really loudly and makes PB so annoyed. So PB decides to get back at him by pretending that she and Ryder are going to have sex in the car while Jal is there. And Jal suddenly, like, is awake. He's like, okay, let me out of the car. I do not need to be here for this. Please let me out. And PB's like, you son of a bitch. You were.
That's one thing I love about this game, is that the squad banter is so much better.
So good. The squad banter is amazing. I love it so much. These two idiots.
Yeah, it's really interesting, the dynamics. Like I said, I brought Cora and Jal because I had not brought them together before. And we know Kara is an only child. Cora, rather, is an only child. And Jal comes from a gigantic family, because all Angaran come from gigantic families. And, like, their conversation is, at first, mostly about, like, talking about what that's like between each other. There is a Angaran word that is sort of like only child that they talk about. They talk about the different kinds of family dynamics. He asks her what it was like to not have any siblings because he can't quite understand it. And then they start talking about, like, each other. And, like, Jal will talk about how he's noticed Cora. And then Cora will be like, Is it warm in here all of a sudden? Can we pull over? And then, like, there's some other thing about working out where Cora makes a comment about Jal, and Jal's like, the temperature definitely went up in this vehicle. I don't understand. Like, it's cute. Like, they're clearly flirting. Like, they're clearly learning about each other and also flirting a little bit. It's just very casual and it's very fun. It's really nice to see the characters develop in that way.
Yeah, I love it. And also, I feel like Jal has such a focused attention on everyone. He is paying such close attention to everyone that he has comments like that for every squad mate except for Drac, I think. Nobody flirts with the old man.
I would, but they won't let me.
All right. Let's move on to frequency.
Yeah. So I love how no matter how technologically advanced any race is that you're interacting with in the Mass Effect franchise, they still can't get their communications to work right, and it becomes your problem. And here we are again.
Hey, communication is hard for everyone.
The Angaran base is having issues with their communications. There's thoughts or theories that it could be the Ket purposely disrupting stuff. And so we are asked to go look into it as they can't really spare the resources to look into it. And you're the Pathfinder. You're going to go Pathfind. And so through exploration, we find out that it's not actually the Ket disrupting communications. It's a Scourge gem, this giant meteorite of, I don't know what else to call it other than like pure Scourge energy, like physically formed.
Yeah, it's a rock that has passed through the Scourge and has adopted new properties as a result. The Scourge gem that we come across apparently has the ability to interfere with communications and drive animals fucking bonkers.
Yes, the stupid invisible dogs that we fight all the time are now going to attack us en masse while we try and deactivate a meteorite, which, like, the whole sentence doesn't make sense. But yet, here we are.
Here we are. Just fighting a herd of Adi. Herd? Pack?
Pack of Adi, I guess, yeah. My favorite thing about this is the planet where I got so many level ups that I was able to fine-tune my shockwave and singularity. And so, like, as soon as I heard the growls, a big singularity, long shockwave, and they just all scatter. They just go flying, bodies everywhere. And, like, I feel like I'm finally becoming the biotic god that I was meant to be in this game. Because I have enough points to spend on stuff.
I'm hoarding my skill points because there's a tech ability that you get when you complete a mission for PB, and I want it. I just want it. It's important to me. Yeah, so once we fight through all these Adi, we have a choice. Destroy it, return it to the Nexus. What'd you do?
I returned it to the Nexus. I feel like it's too important to let this go. It's just disrupting communications, which I feel like on the Nexus won't be that big of a deal. They'll probably have a way to isolate it. Plus, the head of engineering is Kesh. Kesh can do anything.
Kesh can do anything.
So, like, my logic is we're in good hands, so I would send it back.
Yeah, same. It just seemed like this could be useful at some point in the future, and we don't know enough about the Scourge yet. We need to study it somehow. This is a good opportunity.
I agree. That is also what I did. Apparently not as interesting to talk about as I thought it would be.
Look, hey, we've already gone 45 minutes on 3 missions, so we need to have shorter ones somewhere, right?
Anyway, next mission, Brought to Light.
Yeah, so this one's really interesting. We're told that, there are colleagues in trouble. One of the Angaran is like, my friends, they're stuck. Go help them, please. It's important. They were finding an ancient map, an ancient Angaran map. And you're like, oh, okay, sure. Rojek is the name of the character. And so big hero mode Ryder is like, yeah, let's go save these folks. And when we find them, surprise, Rojek lied. Turns out they are pirates. They wanted to steal this map and sell it for lots of credits. And boy, is Ryder unhappy about it.
But I love that Estrella is like, save your breath. You're right. He's wrong. Here's the map.
Yeah.
We didn't realize what we were walking into. We didn't realize how fucked everything was. Like, we wouldn't have done this if we'd known.
Yeah. And so I like how quickly, like, and Astra's partner is like, I can't believe you're going to sell out Rojek. And she's like, forget it. Fuck him. Fuck this. I'm out. Here's the map. Let's just forget about it.
I love Estrella. She's such a badass. Or Astra,
you just like Astra. All Turians.
I do. Turians are great. I have rarely met a Turian that I didn't like.
It's true.
Once we get the map, we do have an option to speak to Rojek, who gave us the mission to begin with, and confront him about the fact that he's a smuggler. How'd that go for you?
I chewed his ass out. I was like, not only do you ask for my help, but then you send me on a semi-wild goose chase just to find out you're lying about everything. How dare you? And then, but through this chewing out and scalding, you are given option to banish him, tell him to take a hike, or recruit him for the resistance. And I chose to recruit him for the resistance because I feel like while he lied, nobody got hurt. Technically, I didn't get that hurt, I guess. And he might still be a good resource, could be a good spy. Like, I don't want to just cast him out. And I'm trying to avoid, considering what happened with the exiles of the Nexus, I'm trying to not perpetuate more of that.
Yeah, for sure. I turned to Jala and was like, you deal with this. He's yours. I have no jurisdiction here. And it's Jala's idea to recruit him for the resistance. Like, you know what? You got your ship in behind Ket ships, like behind Ket lines. You know what you're doing. You can do it for your people.
What about you, Cass?
Yeah, I was like, you're a jackass, but you're a useful jackass.
For sure. Next mission, Fact or Fiction.
Yes. So we meet a chronicler who you Ryder can just go, so you're a historian. Well, yes. Like, I just like the big himbo energy my Ryder has at all times. It's very relatable.
That's because Scott Ryder is a jock.
Yeah, as all good himbos are.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we meet this chronicler who wants help finding first contact records of the Ket. We don't really know. Most modern Ungaran know that we've been fighting them for all these years and the war has gone on for ages. But no one really knows how it started, like where the origin point is, what the first moments and moves were. But they think that they found a place that might have that information. Or if we go to the Ket, we might be able to find more details about it. They may have records that we don't.
Mm-hmm. And as part of destroying the Ket base, we do find some first contact records. And it's not great.
Nope.
We find out that the Ket enlisted some Ungarans to help them with their infiltration and to begin the invasion, so to speak. And what I find really interesting about that narratively is that this is something that often happens when a genocide starts. This is a common trend.
Yeah.
The oppressing force will utilize the marginalized people that they want to eliminate and force them to be part of their greater plan to start wiping out these people. So this is not uncommon. This is definitely on trend with other genocides.
Yeah. And, you know, the logic of, well, maybe if I help them, they'll spare me. It's completely, forgive the term, human to want to save yourself or your family over the greater good sometimes. Like, it's hard to know in those very specific situations how you'll react. And so Frankie said, this is a common thing we see. You know, self-preservation drives a lot of that too.
But also people thinking that they're doing the right thing.
Right.
Like, if it's early enough, they don't know what's about to happen. They don't know what they're setting up.
They may not even know the intentions of the oppressors at first either.
Exactly. Like, the Ket finding out about the Ungarans' electromagnetic abilities, I think that's what it is, bioelectrics. That could have just been, like, the Ket trying to have conversation and like, oh, let's learn more about each other. It didn't need to come from a malicious place. It didn't need to seem malicious. It could have seemed very innocent. And they just didn't know. And they fell into a trap. So now we have to decide, do we encourage our dear chronicler to be honest or to hide the truth?
Yeah. He comments on how, while the truth is important, we as a people need hope, but ultimately is asking us what we think he should do. And so I chose the truth. I feel like, look, in most situations, lying to protect others rarely works. It is a quick fix and a short-term solution, but for longevity and for the greater good, people need to know the facts, need to know the truth. Although we're living in a time where people choose to ignorantly ignore the truth, so there's that too. But I think that the truth should still be provided. So that's what I chose.
I also chose that from my perspective. If you do not record history as it happened, if you try to sugarcoat things, no one's going to learn from it. Kaz, how about you?
Yeah, same. I mean, like you said, lying about it would be a short-term solution, but this is a war that's gone on for so long. Even if it's a hard truth, you need to learn the truth, and then you can at least attempt to do something about it, versus just sweeping it under the rug. Nobody, especially because the Angaran are ostensibly a people who care about knowledge, and having the knowledge that some of their people had a part in the beginning of it could help them going forward.
Okay, 2 more missions to go. Bear with us, guys. Next
they
mission.
like the longer episodes.
Oh,
They'll
do
be
they?
fine. I mean, I'm guessing. I don't know.
Yeah, the long episodes are
See,
fun.
there you go. We have a listener on the show. There you go. Straight from the horse's mouth, as it were.
Our next mission is The Lost Song.
Yeah, we get to talk about some ice whales.
Ice whales! The Yavara are basically whales, the way that the Angara talk about them. If you ever meet someone who's, like, really into whales, that's what the Angara are like.
Yeah. And this is the conversation around this mission is that they are being killed, and they are so important to the Angaran's history. They're a symbol of hope, and that they are just starting to be killed, and it's unclear why. They just know that it's been happening. They've been finding poachers, but they're not sure what's happening.
Also, that the poachers are from the Nexus, or rather from the Milky Way.
Right.
Which is a huge problem.
A huge problem. And so we're asked to help look into it because they just want it to stop. They're not even that angry about, they're angry about it happening, but they want it to stop. They don't want it to continue. They can't go back and change the past. They're looking for help to stop it going forward.
And the Yavara are so important because it's one of the few things they have left of their history. The Yavara have been around since before the Angara. We do find where the poachers are based and who is leading the poaching program. Surprise, surprise, it is a Dr. Lekarat who is Angaran.
Yeah, we find out that, and her defense is, apparently there is an enzyme on the Yavara skin that would help heal fighters faster. But they needed to do research in order to see how they could utilize it, or even if they could utilize it. And killing and poaching the Yavara was the way to do it. And she argues that this is more important. They are important to our history, but surviving against the Ket is more important, and this could help us do that.
And poor Jal is just like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I can't make this decision. I need help.
Yeah. Typically, we defer to Jal for his wisdom with the Angarans, but here Jal is just like, yeah, he's essentially in the middle. Like, he understands what she's talking about, but but it sounds like he's leaning more towards how important the Yavar are, but he can't make this decision. He's too upset and confused to make that choice.
I really appreciate that in this situation, Jal makes it clear that he knows that this should be made by an Angaran, but as the only other Angaran present, he's emotionally compromised and he can't make this decision. Whereas every other time we have to make a decision that impacts another race that we have nothing to do with, there's no acknowledgement that we should not be the ones.
Yeah. And also, I wonder what happens if you don't bring, because you don't have to bring Jal. So I'm curious what happens here if Jal isn't there. I mean, I imagine there will always be some voice of somewhat reason maybe, but it's hard to know because there's no clear answer here, right? It's the same reason animals in our actual real world die for certain things. Some things, animals are poached often for stupid reasons, but there are sometimes, we kill cows, we kill chickens, we kill fish to eat, and there are reasons to kill to survive, and this seems like a good reason on a 10,000 foot view, right? Mm-hmm. So it's tough, and it's not an easy choice to make. I ended up choosing to stop the research. I think that, look, if this was the only way we could ever heal our fighters, if people were dying left and right, although they are on a degree, but if we were not able to heal our wounded at all, it'd be a different story if this was our only resource, but it's not. We have other resources, other synthetics, other things that we use in medical treatment. And so I think the symbol and this animal that could just not exist someday if we keep this up is more important. which is often how I feel about, animals being pushed towards extinction in our actual real non-video game lives. So I leaned towards that and made that choice.
How about you, Kaz?
I had the thought for me was this war's been going on for a long time. There's a lot of things to be said about having something that can help the Angarans in the moment. It's something that can actually help heal them because they've taken a whole lot of losses. But because I brought Joel on this too, he is very of two minds about it, but he seems enough. He seems on the side of keeping his tradition alive enough that swayed me to that side. Because I think the doctor says that the Angaran's tradition is what's keeping them weak in this war. And I feel like the strongest part about the Angarans is their tradition. They keep that alive as much as possible. So it didn't feel right to me to basically put this animal up for extinction just based on this one thing. So, that's where I was.
And when you make that choice, Jal then goes, "Thank you, Ryder. I think that was the right choice." But, I don't know. He may say that if you make the other choice. Frankie, did you also make the choice that we did?
I did. It didn't feel right to me. I felt like the Angaran people as a whole would flip their shit if they found out that what they were using to heal their fighters came from one of their most sacred symbols of hope. I think that they would reject it and just be like, I don't want it. So then the research would have been done for no reason because nobody would accept it.
Also, the fact that the research was being done by an Angaran would further fracture the Angaran and might push more people towards the rebels who are pushing back against the Angaran and causing so much problems too. So
I don't think it would push people towards the Rokar, since the people who join the Rokar are the ones who are most heavily affected by the Ket and distrust the Milky Way colonists.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess this would give them more reason for the Rokar to distrust the Milky Way colonists. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, if they found out a human made that decision, they would be livid.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what it would have been. But yeah, we all agree. Save the Yavara. Save the ice whales. All right, last mission to discuss. It's a real short one. We find out that there's a group of Angarans who are baiting the Ket, pretending to be a downed civilian ship, and drawing the Ket in to attack them, so that way they're just like laying a honey trap, basically. And Jal does not like this. He thinks it's dangerous. He thinks it's going to put other people in danger at some point. I would like to know what you guys think.
I think that Jal is I'm of two minds about it, right? Unnecessary risk. It's a thing we see constantly throughout Andromeda because, the Milky Way folk have so close to nothing that they are willing to take any risk, especially Ryder riding off into the sunset constantly without having a clue what's over the horizon. And it seems to not matter because Ryder's gonna ride. But I think
we need that as a shirt.
Ryder's gonna ride, yeah. But the thing with Jal also is Jal is an empathetic character, overly empathetic. Like we compare him to our favorite marshmallow Caden, and it's a apt comparison because the whole Angaran species talk about emotion forward and are very open about their emotions, and so Jal sharing how he feels. I think it's also clever though. I don't know if I feel one way or the other about it. It's tough because I want to agree with Jal. I think putting people at risk, but if the resistance is putting trained professionals at risk to bait them, how is that different from just running into battle headlong, right? You're giving yourself an advantage. So I don't know that I agree 100%. If they're putting civilians out as bait, bad.
Just to clarify, I think Jal's concern is about civilians. And his concern is that civilians will be targeted more heavily.
Because of these traps.
Yes.
Then, in that case, I'd be inclined to agree with him, but it's hard to know, right? This battle is still so fluid and constantly changing. I can give you a firm maybe on the whole situation.
Solid maybe.
Yeah, I think if there were more of a, if it was more obvious that it was helping, I would say that it's a great idea. I don't, but I think I agree with Joel. I think there's too much of a risk to the civilian population. I think it's not going to make enough of a dent in the Ket that it makes enough sense to me.
Personally, I feel like it's kind of a morale booster. They lay these traps, they lay into the Ket, they get back at the Ket for thinking of civilians as easy pickings. And if they do their jobs right, no Ket survive to report back that these traps are happening. I think good for them. Like, you do you. Get your revenge in a constructive way. You're trained professionals. You're not just like some randos with guns. Do your job right. Make sure that no Ket go home, and you're whittling them down. And you're also protecting other travelers by making sure there are fewer Ket around. That is my opinion.
This is the most middle of the road our overall decision has been. Like, we have one in favor, one against, and one somewhere in the middle. Good job, everybody.
Yeah, diverse opinions.
It's tough on this show.
I knew we'd get there eventually. All right, now that we have gone through the important missions that had a lot to discuss, before we move on, does anyone have any general notes, any honorary mention missions, anything of that nature?
I'm just scanning through my notes. There are recruits that you get to meet who fanboy over you.
Oh, I love them.
And they're so great. And then you get to make some bad puns back towards them, to which no one says anything. The recruits make a bad pun, and you get to support the bad puns. And I'm always in favor of supporting bad puns, anyone who knows me. I love those recruits and those scouts. They're great. I think that was kind of really it. We covered the banter. I bitched about Sam never shutting up. Like, those are the bigger takeaways outside of the missions for me, I think.
My favorite quote that came out of playing this was one of the Ingarns freed from a labor camp saying, "If the Ket can't handle being called mildly insulting things, then that's on them, not me."
It's so pragmatic.
Mood. Such a mood. And I do want to point out that there is one mission that we didn't discuss. We don't have to, but we do learn something from it. And the thing that we learn is that the Archon is in breach of protocol, and there is a conflict between factions within the Ket. So, laying some groundwork for something we might see later.
Yeah, it seems like there's a Ket Prime. There's a leader above the Archon or laterally from the Archon. It's unclear.
I think there is like a Supreme.
Yeah.
And then there's a Senate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's like a branching kind of government. I don't know. Ket are weird.
I mean, yes, we still know so little about them.
Kaz, anything to add?
To touch on that mission, the thing it just popped in my head right now. It kind of reminds me of, and y'all will get to this eventually. I'm guessing is that it reminds me a lot of the Archon and the Ket in this game. Remind me a lot of the Canarian Dragon Age 2, and that they're this. It seems like they're this one group or this one sect of the Ket that aren't on board with everything going on wherever they're from, and that's very similar to Dragon Age 2 in that. It just seems like a similar theme.
I definitely see that.
And the only other thing I had to say is Vold's very pretty. It's a very pretty snowy world. Because I think it's only the third snow planet we have in the entire series. I think we got Novaria in the first one, and then I think we've got the crash site in 2, and then I don't think there's 1 in 3. So I think this is only the third one we ever see, and it's just pretty.
It is pretty, especially after you activate the vault and it clears up the sky and you see like these this aurora borealis. Like, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful place.
No, yeah, I although I mean the massiveness of this planet and just driving the goddamn Nomad. Like, I never thought I'd miss the Mako, but I'm starting to miss the Mako because it was at least reliably bad. This is just, I'm maybe not a good video game driver.
I think that's what it is.
I also don't have enough upgrades yet, I think, is part of it, too. I'm trying.
Gotta upgrade.
I need the materials.
The only other thing I did in this one is you guys already got to it on a couple episodes ago. This is my first time on this playthrough getting to the architect, and I forgot how much I hated it.
Oh yeah, that fight sucks, especially on this planet because he's hiding around. He's like standing on top of these. So this is where Sam drove me nuts. Is you still have to dive to protect your life support, but also these buildings make it hard to hit the points on the architect that you need to kill it. It was just
You gotta find the right door to stand in.
it's the worst. It was the worst fight.
It took a good 5 or 6 tries for me to get this.
Yeah, it sucks. I agree.
I guess I'm just a pro.
I guess so.
Good at killing architect.
Any questions for me before we start to wrap up?
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions. Do you feel like the structure of completing the story, an act of the story, and then going back to revisit the planets for side missions is working for us?
Do you want an honest answer?
Yes.
I have no idea.
No idea.
My honest answer is it works fine. I don't know that there's a better way. You know, typically, while you've always done the episode maps, typically we plan the seasons together. I am not of much help this season. So I think it works fine. I think that in the previous playthroughs, because we knew the game so well, we were able to intersperse the side missions often and then just take a clump of major side missions towards the end or in a separate episode. Here, this makes sense to intersperse it because there's just so much to do in the game. Do I think it's the most effective way to do it? I couldn't tell you. Like, I'm not familiar enough with the game to know. I think it's working great for what we need to talk about it. I think there might be a time where we maybe do a short mini-series of like Andromeda Remastered where we visit the game in a smaller time period so I can just talk about what I've learned from my experience or maybe played it more. I don't know. We'll see. But like, I think it's effective for how we're trying to do it. And I know I couldn't have done it any better. I can definitely say that. So,
Kaz, as a listener, what do you think?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think as far as the way this season has been set up, I think it works pretty well as a listener. I think it flows really well as far so far at least. I would be curious once all this is done, and Matt, when you had a second playthrough and kind of did it more at your own pace and went where wherever you felt like going at the time, what the difference would be and how you felt about the game or how you felt it was paced and things like that. I would be very curious what a second playthrough would look like for you as well.
Yeah, that's fair. I think ultimately, whereas obviously I don't think we'll do a long season like this ever again, I do think there's a time where maybe after we do whatever game is next after this, since we haven't decided yet, like after that season, maybe if I've had time to play it on my own speed, maybe doing a Fem Rider playthrough or whatever, talking about what that playthrough is like versus, because we talk about it a little bit in the trilogy seasons, like my ever famous redheaded range shepherd and how that's like that's my playthrough, that's my shepherd, even though it's not the shepherd based on me. Like I think creating that kind of a story and narrative and seeing the game through that light might give me a different perspective on the game beyond the perspective I have this time.
Personally, I feel like Andromeda has a lot of replay value, especially since the decisions have a lot of gray morality. You can much easier approach it with, I'm going to make a different decision this time, without feeling bad about the decision that you're going to make. The decisions don't have a morality assigned to them. So when you make your decision, you don't have to feel judged like you might when making decisions with the Paragon Renegade designation.
Yeah, it's far less polarized than.
And my next question, are you ready to get on with story?
Yeah, I want to know where this is going. I really still have no idea, which is interesting to me, right? Because it feels like we've put a lot of hours in, but we've only done a handful of tentpole moments. But like, I feel like it's hard to say, right? Like, I feel like Mass Effect 1 and 2 show their cards sooner because I'm so familiar with them. But as I replay through the first game now, again, there are a lot of questions about Saren and the Reapers till very late in that game. And so I think this structure is not that foreign. I just think I'm so hyper familiar with those games. And that since they become ultimately about the Reapers, the surprises in 2 and 3, while still big and important, are big and important for different reasons, not so much the mystery. Whereas this still feels like a giant mystery. Like I have no idea where we're headed next, which again will continue to have me compare this to Star Trek. Because my favorite thing about modern Star Trek, especially like Discovery, which I've been obsessed with, is you don't know where each new season of Discovery is going because it's doing different things. And I think that Andromeda absolutely lives up to that kind of sci-fi. And so I've been enjoying that aspect of it. But that said, I am also looking forward to punching the Archon in the face. So we'll see.
All right. Time for some advice. Advice for a new galaxy. If you want to make sure that your squad mate banter doesn't get interrupted, just stop driving when they stop talking. They'll finish their quips and then you can just move on. Because I find that I think that I'm far away from like mission things, so I don't have to stop driving when they start doing their banter, and I'm like, oh, this is funny. And before it can get to the punchline, I'll drive too close to something, and Sarah will interrupt them and be like, oh, there's that thing that we have to go check out. And I'm just like, damn it, Sarah, shut up.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
So, like, if you want to hear what they're saying, just stop driving for a second. That way you can hear it, and you don't get frustrated that you missed out on something that could have been funny. And my other piece of advice is advice I've given you before, but I feel like it bears repeating. Go to the Nexus and Aya regularly, turn in missions, progress other missions, etc. Because there's not really a whole lot of need for us to go back to these places for like a whole episode.
Right.
So you might as well just go and like progress missions that you can progress and, you know, do what you gotta do, because you can just keep it in your pocket and bring it up when we've both done it, you know?
Sure. That makes sense.
Like the movie night mission. That's gonna take several steps, so you might as well like go and progress it until, you know, we both complete it, and then we can discuss it as part of an episode. Kaz, do you have any advice for Matt?
Nothing better than that. I think that's pretty good for now, especially where we're at in the game.
Baller. So, we're gonna do something fun. And Kaz, we would like you to pick a character from Andromeda. Your options are pretty much main squad mate and secondary characters. Anyone that we've talked to multiple times due to the narrative.
Yeah, I was thinking, I don't think anybody's done the Archon yet.
Alright, give me a second to pull up what that is. What is your latest hyperfixation?
Okay, that's actually an easy one. I've gotten a lot more into cooking, and I really, really enjoy it. And I wasn't much of a cook, like, and this has all happened unsurprisingly during the pandemic. I just didn't cook much, and then I just, for whatever reason, I had nothing else to do, and I just started enjoying it because honestly, I couldn't tell you why. I just did. I don't know if it's just because I had nothing else to do, and this was something brand new, and I was learning this new skill, and so I basically, I'm not going to say I perfected it, but I've gotten very good at a spaghetti, and I think that the most interesting thing is I'll find a recipe and then I'll do my own thing with it, and for the most part that worked, because like I've taken like a spaghetti and with meat sauce and then put in different ingredients that aren't in the recipe. Like I found this, and I didn't know this existed before then. I found this, it's a port wine cheese.
Ooh.
And if you grate it over the spaghetti, it mixes in and it melts really quickly. And it's amazing.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and the other thing I did is that I was very happy with, and I enjoyed it. I have no idea if anybody else would enjoy it as much as I did, but I took this. It was a chicken marinade, and it was just like a red wine vinegar marinade with garlic and all this other stuff in it. And for just no reason, just because I had it on the shelf and I'd never used it, I had this Moroccan seasoning and just threw it in there for no reason. And I was like, either this is going to taste great or it's going to taste terrible. I have no idea. This should be fun. And it ended up great. But that's been the thing that I think that's more been the hyperfixation, is trying weirder stuff than I'm used to. Because before that, I'm not putting a Moroccan seasoning on anything. I'm not trying a wine cheese. Just little things like that I think have been really fun. Yeah, I mean that's it. It's just been really fun to do something so different than I've done, and I mean and I'm still looking up different things that I want to try. Like I've been wanting to try this a jerk chicken wings, and because I've had jerk chicken before and I like it a lot, but I don't know if I could actually do it. So basically I just want to see if I can do it or not. It's almost as much the challenge as it is whether it tastes good or not.
That's awesome. That's a good hyperfixation. Matt, how about you? Or is your answer playing Mass Effect on your Steam Deck?
So, I mean, that's the easy answer, right? Like when the Steam Deck came in, initially I was disappointed. A bunch of games wouldn't run on it, which we knew that. Anyone who's been following the Steam Deck knows that there's like 35 verified games in my library, and there's like less than a tenth of the library that's verified to work. Then there's a bunch that are a question mark and that may work, and then there are a bunch that don't. Who knows? Nobody knows. But I was turned on to a fan-made tool that forces the games to work in a certain way that, for the most part, they function. And like it's worked for the trilogy, which I'm playing. It worked for Persona 4, which I've really wanted to play, and I was saving for the Steam Deck and some other games. So I'm excited about that. But my actual hyperfixation is similar to Kaz's in the fact that I found myself reaching outside my comfort zone. Look, as an anxious, depressed person, I don't do that a lot. It's hard. I want to lean into my comforts, especially during the pandemic. But I'm someone who's talked on this show, my other podcast, Funny Games, and plenty of other places that I'm not a Souls fan. The Souls games just seem too hard, and it's like, who wants to hit their head against the wall over and over again to figure out how to beat a boss and move on? But that said, I was like, Elden Ring looked good. I wanted to try it. And so I was like, let me try. I own Dark Souls 3. I bought it to play with friends. Let me try it. It's on PC, so there are mods. And so I found a mod that gives me 75% damage reduction, which sounds like a lot. But in Dark Souls, it's nothing because the bosses hit you so hard. If you can't figure out their patterns, it doesn't matter. And I ended up beating the game in like a week or a week and a half. Blew through it, got obsessed with it, loved it, hyper fixated on it. Days later, talking to my spouse about Elden Ring a little bit, a comedian that they follow was making a faux tour guides of Elden Ring, like TikTok or Instagram video. It's like, oh, are you going to pick that up? I was like, I don't know. Well, if you want, I mean, you should if you want to. And I was like, and then my friends were talking about it. I know a bunch of friends who reviewed it. And it's like, you know what? I've wasted $60 on worse things. Let me buy Elden Ring and try it. And I became obsessed. Obsessed in the same way that I became obsessed with Breath of the Wild when it first came out. A lot of people like to compare other games to the exploration in Breath of the Wild. And some games get it right. But like the thing about Breath of the Wild that made it Breath of the Wild was if you picked a direction and went in that direction, you'd find a thing. Could be a good thing, a bad thing, and a weapon, an item, a Koroxy, doesn't matter, a shrine, but you find something in any direction. Elden Ring is the same way. Unlike Dark Souls, that's mostly a hallway where you go from area to area to eventual boss fight. There are ruins where you can fight bosses. There are major story bosses. There are giant places to explore, weapons to find, armor to find, spells to find. It's just been really fascinating to explore that world and fall into a game series that I thought I would never love, and now thinking, oh my god, am I a Souls sicko now? Do I like these games? The answer is yes. And so that hyperfixation has been really cool. I haven't played it, I think, in a few days now, and I'm actually itching to play it, which is how I know a game has its hooks in me. And it's just been a really fascinating thing. And it's so far outside my comfort zone until I started comparing it to games like Metroid that are traditionally difficult, yet I love them and have played through all of them. And I was like, oh, maybe I was just being an idiot, which comes up often when it comes to the games I don't like and the reasons I don't like them. So that Elden Ring and the Souls games from FromSoft on the grander scale have been my most recent hyperfixation. What about you, Frankie?
I wish I could say that my recent hyperfixation is anything cool. It is not. It is my health.
I mean, but that's cool. Being healthy is cool.
Well, as many people may know, I've struggled with my health for a really long time. I don't get a lot of sleep at night. I'm just physically exhausted. I'm constantly going to the doctor just to be like, please figure it out. Please just help me. Today, I actually went to the a sleep study doctor and picked up an at-home sleep kit because they think that I have sleep apnea. So my hyperfixation is figuring out why I'm exhausted all the time so I can finally start living like a full life. I tried getting into working out, but I can't work out because I'm not getting enough oxygen and I can't do it for a long period of time. Even walking for a half an hour, it just takes so much out of me. And my doctor raised a very good point of when you're exhausted, you can't work out. You can't start a fitness routine because you are too tired. And even though a lot of people are like, oh, but if you start doing like working out, then that'll help your energy levels. No, it doesn't. Not always. Sometimes you're just fucking exhausted.
Yeah.
And you just can't physically do it. So that is my hyperfixation, trying to get healthy and figure my shit out.
I mean, I still think it's a cool hyperfixation because it ultimately will keep you on this planet longer, and I think that's pretty cool.
Hopefully. We'll see. I would like to, like, stop wishing for death because I'm so tired. When I talk to my doctor and they ask me if I'm suicidal, my answer is, well, does wishing that I wasn't alive for a little while so I can just, like, stop, is that suicidal? And they're like, yeah, a little bit. Just like, oh, okay, that's what I got. And it's because I'm so tired, because, man, if I could just check out for a couple of months, that'd be so sweet.
Yeah. There's a bit in the recent Bo Burnham special about how, like, do you ever just wish you could kind of just unalive yourself and then realive yourself a few months later? So that is not an uncommon thing that people have thought, I think, of just like, how do I make it stop?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm hoping that the way that I make it stop is to get better sleep.
Yeah, it's a good start at least.
Yeah. Figure out if I have the sleep apnea. So that's my hyperfixation. Now that I brought us all down.
Oh, stop. I'm sure everyone in the audience hopes that you feel better. And again, figuring out what's wrong is a good hyperfixation, I think.
And if you don't hope that I feel better, keep it to yourself because I'm sensitive.
Yeah, we don't want to hear it. We're all very fragile here. Anyway, that's the end of our episode. In the next episode, we're going to finally move this main plot forward. We are on the hunt for the Archon, and our first stop is Kadaraport. Kaz, thank you for joining us on this lovely adventure into Voeld.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yay!
If you wish to be found on the internet, would you like to now share where folks can find you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know if I'm as exciting a follow as you guys, but the only place I'm really on is Twitter, and it's at the Kaz Wheeler. Then I'll basically every once in a while I'll just tweet about whatever I'm watching or thinking about that day. I can't promise you it's going to be interesting, but it'll be there.
That's such a mood. And
that's what I say about myself.
It's also really easy to do. I did it right now while Kaz was talking. So go follow Kaz. Give him a follow.
All right. If you like what you heard here, follow us on social media. We're at ReignitePod on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram, Facebook.com/ReignitePod, or you can send us an email at reignitepod@gmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at iHoardLibraries and Matt at DJ_Stormageddon. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher if you can. It helps us get seen so other people can find us. And yes, that does include Spotify.
Literally, I think you can review and rate everywhere now, so just do it. Also, we are members of the Certain Point of View podcast network. You can visit certainpov.com to find more nerdy podcasts, each with a unique point of view. You can also find a permanent invite link to our Discord server on the website and join in the conversation. We have a channel dedicated to Andromeda spoilers that I will maybe do a live reading from at the end of the season. Just pick my favorites because I cannot look at it right now. But if you want to talk to me about Mass Effect that we have covered on the show so far or previous stuff, we do have a dedicated channel to Mass Effect as well as video games, TV, movies, all sorts of stuff. The network runs the gambit, so does the Discord. So come hang out with us.
If you're enjoying our Andromeda shenanigans here, then you should catch me over on Archives of the Dragon every other Monday, where my spouse, Professor John Bradley Lestrange, leads us through the wild unknown outside the Helios cluster in Andromeda. You can find that at twitch.tv/Arc of the Dragon.
You can also find me at DJ_Stormageddon everywhere on the internet. You can go to DJStormageddon.com to check out my Ko-fi, my merch store, all the other podcasts I make. And also, we have said for several weeks now, we are going to be at PAX East 2022. I'm very excited. We're going to be there. We're going to be hanging out, covering it for my other podcast, Fun and Games, and just more broadly for the network itself. Also, an exciting announcement. You're hearing it here first. In theory, by the time this episode airs, we'll have already announced it on Twitter. But in case you missed it, we actually have a panel as well. I'm very excited to announce that CPOV is presenting the evolution of queer representation in games. The panel will feature myself, Jeff Moonen of Fun and Games, and Frankie Bradley Lestrange.
No, I only have one Bradley.
You're only the one Bradley. As well as some other really incredible guests, Radiant G, Shell Wong, Chris Compendio, awesome folks within the games space. We're going to talk about how, queerness has come a long way as far as representation in gaming and how it still kind of has a long way to go. There's still a lot that could be done right. And, there is also quite a bit of stuff they are getting right. And so if you want to come to that panel, it is going to be on Friday, April 22nd at 3 p.m. Eastern in the Condor Theater. Please come hang out with us. We would love to see you in person. If you happen to see myself or Frankie walking the show floor, please come up and say hi. We would love to chat with you, and we will see you in Boston.
I'll give you a sticker.
Yes, that's true.
But fair warning, please do not try and touch me if I can't see you.
Yes, get our attention visibly.
Yes. For your own safety. I would hate to hurt you because of the trauma. Anyway, we'd like to thank Red Spinks for our It's Okay to Be a Marshmallow t-shirt on Redbubble featuring our favorite marshmallow, Caden Malenko. And I would personally like to thank Red Spinks for doing some amazing character art for my Archives of the Dragon game, where I play a Drell Vanguard named Alomi Druis, and my best friend Amberly plays a Quarian infiltrator named Aviva Narvira. They're best friends. They've known each other since they were 8 years old when Aviva's father paid Alomi 20 credits to be Aviva's friend. And Alomi said, "Joke's on you, old man. I am obsessed with them already." So I got some amazing art. And Red did not even know what these races looked like. I gave Red a whole bunch of references, and that night he returned to me a gorgeous sketch, already understanding what they were supposed to look like. Like, Red is incredible. If you have some alien art that you need done, you can find more of his work at Chaos Does Art on Instagram, and definitely commission him. He's incredible.
We'd also like to thank Carter's husband for developing more amazing shirt designs that you can find at certainpov.com or on Teespring.
Thank you to David Boyle for redesigning our logo like a champ. And finally, thank you to JT Music and Andrea Storm Caden for our new theme music. I'm Frankie.
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And I'm Kaz Wheeler. Good luck, Pathfinders.
Video games are a unique medium.
They can tell stories,
Immerse us in strange, fantastic worlds.
blur the very boundaries of our reality.
But at the end of the day, video games are fun, whatever fun is to you.
I'm Jeff Moonen,
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
and on Fun and Games, we talk about the history, trends, and community of video games.
It's a celebration of all the games we play and all the fun we find within them.
And there's so many more games out there, so we hope you'll share in that conversation with us.
Fun and Games podcast with Matt and Jeff. Find us on certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
And happy gaming.
CPOV.
CertainPOV.com.